Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Good morning.
Hey, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. I get a kick out of like our whole morning show intro thing.
Oh yeah.
It's yeah. It's the music part that's actually one of my kids who was a theater major and did voice stuff
I
and
mean the narration
the
part.
narration.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I I listen to it and I'm like, I think about them every morning that we do this. And
Sure.
was also thinking that it's interesting. Just I was looking at the artwork and remembering the morning after we decided to do this, how I put that together.
Yeah.
And just, it's like,
Yeah.
well, we'll do a little this, we'll do a little this and make it look like this. And
I like it. It's due for an update.
it is due for an update. I mean,
but I do like it.
it's been, and I think that we're like at about 340
Probably about that.
episodes. So
Mhm.
we've been doing this for a minute.
Mhm.
It's fun. We certainly enjoy it. And it's Friday.
Yep.
We take Jim's mom to the airport today. I'm
On
kind of
her
sad about on her birthday.
I can't say which birthday it is. That will get me in big trouble. But
She
she did come
is
for a visit. So
yeah,
that's nice.
yeah, and it's a great drive yesterday up to Bear Lake and other places, and
Mhm.
so I think that we have sold her on how pretty it is up here in northern Utah, and we'll be back soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I enjoyed the tour myself. We took a wide swing. I even dropped into Idaho for a
Yeah,
minute,
it was great. It was great. And if y'all haven't, and it's on your bucket list, and I know a lot of people come to ski in Utah.
A lot of people
but
come to southern Utah.
They come to southern Utah for the national
rocks
parks and all that, but northern Utah in the summer is really beautiful.
And the fall.
And in the fall when all the colors start changing. So, if it's been on your bucket list, you live anywhere around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's not on your bucket list, get a bigger bucket.
Get a bucket. Yes.
Yeah.
Get a bigger bucket. So, what announcements? We got anything?
We got a group 3 meeting on Tuesday night.
And Wednesday, you've got your V8 Plus meeting, don't you?
Yeah. We're doing a V8 Plus meeting on pricing
we've been
and markup. Yep.
Getting a lot of really great insight from some, and you actually have a interview today with someone from the capital space too, and
right. Yep.
So some really great high value.
Yep. And we've been working behind the scenes, and this is where we are business owners, just like most of our listeners, as dealers out there in the space, and as business owners, we've been working on some elements of scaling our business, working on the technology side, working with potential partners, and so yeah, we're out there chipping away, trying to make our own
doing
solution.
what we talk about is like and it's the whole idea of working in your business versus working on your business. I keep seeing more and more and more people that are actually, that use that phraseology, one of which Tony Robbins just recently, like his big thing right now is stop working in your business, work on your business.
Yeah.
And other ones that are the bigger names. And I know that's kind of where we heard it through some of these things, but I've just seen recent new marketing things that they're talking about working in your business, or working in your business is, that's more like a glorified job. It's, but working on your business. So we're
chipping away.
We are chipping away. We're, it's coming. So today's topic is, it's going to be quick. I mean, who finds accounting sexy?
Yeah. And this is not so much accounting as it is management. I would say this is more of a conversation around management and how to, how to make these kind of decisions, because to me, we're talking about the subject of posting vehicle expenses. And I just see from our working inside software that, and we work with a lot of the DMSs with our clients and others. And of course, now through V8, we're talking through those things. And what I'm seeing is that the reality is that, are we sure we got audio?
We do. And it's just interesting because I was just looking at this, and the only one that went live was YouTube. So I'm going live right now. They might have missed a few minutes, but
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, something different.
So yeah. So again, the topic that we are going to be talking about today is on accounting. Not very sexy, but it's important stuff, and it's stuff that you talk to people. A lot of our clients, it's different questions, and we don't get too heavy in accounting, but it comes up every once in a while about, like, for instance, when you're buying a slew of GPS units, dealers will say, does that get attributed to the car? Does
Mhm.
that get attributed just as an expense? I mean, where does that
Yeah,
land?
and as I said, I don't view it as an accounting question as much as an administrative question.
Mhm.
It's more of a time involved, and so this is
Mhm.
why I posed the question, just because in working with dealers and seeing their numbers and seeing how people report, and even in something as simple as V8, watching how people try to report and the conversations we
Mhm.
have about, is this included in your recon? Is this included in your recon?
Mhm.
Those kind of conversations, and it's like it just kind of raised the question for me about. I would just challenge dealers as we think through this, and as we go, let's share the slides. Like the first
Yeah.
slide is on fuel. So
And
we
again,
asked,
those of you that are joining us later, the internet didn't fully connect us to anything on
it
Facebook, and
seems it looks
so
that way from
it
our
looked
side.
like it from our end. So
Yeah. So the point is that the reality is that these expenses that we
mhm.
put 3 polls out actually, just
A lot
kind
of
of 3
people,
different topics.
piped in, and so yeah, we
Yeah,
got
some
some.
comments in addition to the actual poll results, and so
Mhm.
the results are just conversation pieces. Like,
Mhm.
I think it's not a large enough poll to get a feel for what really dealers are doing, but certainly in our observations, um, they sometimes just put a lot of time into. And look, every business owner's different and what they want to see in order to better manage their business.
Mhm.
I simply thought today would be an opportunity for us to bring forward the notion that maybe sometimes we don't have to post these expenses to the individual unit. But
Mhm.
let's show do you have it? I don't see
Which
the one
one
for,
you
let's see
got?
the one on fuel.
All I see is Jim's laptop. We're
Oh,
gonna
that's
we're gonna
true. It
bring
is.
up we're gonna add one, and we're just gonna go with it. And this one is um
This one is fuel.
this one's fuel.
Okay.
All right,
So you
so
can see that 88% of the respondents said we charge it to fuel, but not to the unit stock number,
okay,
which that
that
was
makes.
encouraging to me. It was surprising.
So, I mean, fuel,
Hmm.
that's you're putting a little bit of gas, and people are out test driving, all of that kind of thing. How do you, when you're doing it that way,
Hmm.
I'm just curious, how do you mitigate team members just going and filling their own car up?
Well, that is one of the challenges, and I think
Mhm.
what you've got to do is, this kind of reminds me of a story that, and I had this experience in my own
Mhm.
dealership where we had people, misusing that, the petty cash
And that can
system that
be, I
we
mean,
created.
gas prices are $4, $5 in some
Uh-huh.
places a
Sure.
gallon.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
higher in California, but
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, the reality is this is something, as an example, I just picked 3 examples. So we were going
Mhm.
to talk about fuel, GPS, and forgot the last one. We'll see it in a minute.
Yeah.
But the reality is, on the fuel side, it's an example of something there may be $10 and $20 at a time, regardless of how
Uh-huh.
dealers pay for it. It might be charged on an account somewhere, a local
Mhm.
fuel source, or it might be sending cash out of a petty cash system to fuel up a car. Either way, the question for me is, like, does it really matter how much of that fuel, if we go put $20 in, some Honda Accord, does
Mhm.
it matter if we charge that $20 of fuel to that unit? And if you start to really break that down, in this case, we're taking a $20 fuel ticket.
Mhm.
But I think the reason I wanted to raise this question is, what difference does it really make how much money we put into that one unit? So for some dealers, they
Yeah.
want to know, like, how
Uh-huh.
much money do I have in that one car? And I just kind of wanted to challenge the thought process with these
Mhm.
polls. And this one is a simpler one. Like, fuel is, to me, is something that is better managed in a
Mhm.
bucket of saying, I don't care if the $20 is in the Accord or the Civic. You see
Mhm.
what I mean? So now this one suggests that dealers are doing that with
Yeah.
this particular one. We can look at the other ones with
Mhm.
GPS and
Let's take a look at this one is a little bit harder to see.
I don't know. Let me see if I open my screen, if I can read a little better. A little bit, yeah. So this one is shop labor. So this one's trickier because not everybody has a good software system in the shop side to be able to really differentiate that. So if you have a good
there are good
software
softwares out there to be able to do that.
There are some good ones. So I think that we certainly meet a lot of dealers who aren't using any kind of software in their shop. We also obviously meet a lot of dealers who aren't doing the reconditioning in their own shop.
So which makes it a little easier to,
yeah. So I certainly think obviously that dealers ought to track their labor hours, figure out, how much labor is going to a unit. I think the part that I'm really questioning is, is it important that we, from an accounting standpoint, let me just give you an example. I have one tech who works on 3 different cars today. In my shop software, I know that the tech's labor hours went, to these 3 different units. Now, the question is, do I need to track that and bring those dollars as an expense or post it to the individual unit in my DMS before I'll sell it so that I know my real cost in that unit? So the quote unquote real cost.
Yeah.
Okay. So see where I'm going?
But I mean, parts are attributed to the unit.
Yeah.
Parts are easier, but I mean, not that there's a lot of dealers out there that that have people in the shop that are like, we got nothing to work on, because that doesn't happen very often. But I mean, your shop people are going to get paid one way or another. They get paid. And for most dealers, that's one of the harder ones, it seems, from as I'm watching social media, it's one of the harder ones to find good quality people that will stick around and really work with a dealer, is the shop.
Yeah.
More
so
than anything.
I think that's a different question. Like for me, that most shops are telling us, or most dealers with a shop, and even the ones who are using outsourced shops, they're really telling us, I can't get my cars through fast enough, which means, which you could infer means that the dealer, that the techs are busy. Like they're putting in their 40 hours. If it's 40 and they're putting in their 40 hours, now it's just a question of which units are they actually giving their time to. So that's what the question was really for me about today, is like, if I know in the shop, and just let's go back to that example, a tech worked on 3 different cars today. So their 8 hours of time in the shop, as an example, are split between 3 different cars. And I have that in my shop software probably. The question is for me, and it's a question, it's not a statement, it's really just a question, because this is getting into some really some kind of nebulous things that can be challenging to manage. And the reason I raised the question today was, do we really need to know in the DMS, like when we sell a car and we want to report our gross profit, and especially because we've had conversations in the past about dealers pricing from cost. So if I know that this tech put 5 hours, last week into this Accord, is it important to the success of the business and to daily operations to be able to go and move those 5 hours of labor into the DMS and post it as an expense to the unit? And so my question is, why would we need to know that in the unit itself? It's really just a question to challenge dealers to think about, because if the answer is no, I'm satisfied with having that in my shop software, or I'm satisfied having that in my QuickBooks, because we still are writing payroll checks and we know what our labor is. So the question is, from a really detailed standpoint, do I need to know which hours went into which units? That's really the purpose of this.
And I can really see either side, especially when it's like, this is a trouble vehicle, and one of our shop people have been on that car all day long for the last 4 days or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, that is where all of their time has gone to this specific car.
But is that okay? So if that's true, and I have an extra $1,000 or $1,500 of
it
labor,
shouldn't really make any difference
what
on
is
the price of the car.
Well, that's really the question is, I mean, you say it shouldn't to you, but to some dealers it does. And so I'm really just raising the question of where does it help to know that information? How does it help a dealer to know that those labor hours went into this car. As a result, my cost is this. Because I see some dealers getting super analytical about my
Granular.
cost in this car, really
Mm-hmm.
granular about my cost in this particular car. And it just, to me, it's a question of, is that an appropriate investment from an administrative standpoint? Let me just read the results. For those who are not seeing the screen, this poll number 3 of 3 was on labor in the shop, and it's 80%. So let me just read the questions. The first option I posed was, we track shop labor by stock number, but do not post it to the unit. Okay, so that was they track it. They have a way to know which labor time went into which vehicle. And so 20% said that's what they do. They don't post it to the unit. The other 80% said we post all labor to a labor expense, but do not track it by stock number. So all the respondents said they don't put it to the stock number, which surprised me, because I feel like we see dealers who were doing that. Again, our poll results were a bit low, but the question is that nobody said they're actually putting those hours to the individual unit, which is encouraging to me. I just think it's really a question of two things. It's how much time is it worth for us to put somebody on that project of going and posting those expenses in the DMS.
Well, and if you got the software, it makes it a little easier, but not every dealer has the shop software that can show that.
But then it's really, forget the shop software and talking about just the DMS, like having that information. If I say, okay, that the techs put 3 hours into this Accord, and now I have it, now my cost in the Accord is X. How does that help me from an operational standpoint? And does it help me, or does it work against me to know that, am I pricing from cost? Because we've gone through this. We talked about pricing recently. Our V8 Plus meeting next week is about pricing. And you know that I typically advocate for not pricing from cost. I had this conversation with a dealer just the other day. It's like, we have our own methodology that we recommend for pricing. And while it certainly factors in cost before you
but not solely from cost, because you hear people like the how you do the math, double the cost at $1,000 is like the most spit out common.
That's been around for decades.
Yeah,
and I'm surprised to see how many dealers are still following that practice. And so we went into some depth. We had Steve Burke from Agora came and talked to us on behalf of our V8 dealers, or to speak to, and then Brent Carmichael also.
Too. Yeah.
And so we've got quite a bit of in-depth information about that from those seasoned experts. And I just think, from my standpoint, I'm trying to help dealers. Of course, we want them to have good information. It's really just a question of the layer of administration, and then the question of, when you put it on the vehicle, what does that help you do? What do you now know? And what do you do with that information?
Well, and we talk about paralysis of analysis, and we've worked with dealers that measure everything and just like micromanage and measure everything, and they go freaking nuts. It's so much, and their anxiety and stress level is much higher than it needs to be.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is part of what I see with the administration. It's like you feel like there's stress level around some of those kind of things, and I think sometimes we can alleviate some of that stress if we will let go of some of this detail that could really be either tracked in only one software or only one place. It's still going to go into your accounting. It's still going to reflect it in your QuickBooks or whatever your accounting software is. I'm not suggesting we don't do that. You're going to know what your cost of sales are, your shop labor, all of that stuff on an aggregated basis. My question really is, does it belong in the individual detail on the unit? And I know dealers are hearing my voice right now and saying, I'm absolutely going to continue to track that on an individual unit basis. And if it serves them, fine.
Well, and it's, from my perspective, and I'm not a buyer payer dealer.
You're not?
No,
you're not.
I play one on television on the morning show. Not a buyer payer dealer. That to do it so that it's in aggregate I mean,
Mhm.
that makes an awful lot of sense unless you're seeing something really screwy happening.
Okay.
And it's like the numbers are way off, and then you stop and you do it's like a deep audit or whatever, but not on a day-to-day tracking. It's like there might be reasons why you would go in and it's like, how much time did we spend, or that, and just to kind of see, is this a shop problem? Is this we're buying the wrong kind of car problem?
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of, if you're only getting, you're normally getting 10 cars a week out of recon and it's dropped down to 4
Yeah.
or 5. It's like that. Then I can see kind of going in and taking a deeper look, but not doing that in accounting. Yeah.
Well, and again, I want to be clear. Like, I'm not saying don't track the hours on the
Mhm.
Accord versus the Civic. I
Uh-huh.
think dealers should have that
But
detail.
not in accounting.
Well, not in the DMS that
DMS.
we
Uh-huh.
use to track the cost of the car, which tells us how much markup
Mhm.
we had in the car. Like we have this question come up in our VA
Mhm.
groups because, and so we just put it over on kind of our tracking sheet for members so that every member can know this dealer does include labor. This dealer does not include labor. So they can at least kind of, make
Yeah,
an
more
own
apples
mental
to apples.
adjustment.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
you can kind of know what you're dealing with. But I guess my point is I'm not saying don't have it available to analyze.
Mhm.
I'm simply questioning whether it belongs on an individual unit, because
Mhm.
that was the purpose of the poll. Asked,
Yeah.
do you post it on an individual unit in your DMS? And that just begs the question of, is that extra layer of administration, is it helpful? What does it
Mhm.
really do for the dealer to
Yeah.
have that in the DMS and know, what their sales price?
Mhm.
And so our last one was on GPS units. So this one, the question was,
And it's
yeah, it's very
it's
close. I mean, but I would say they say 57%. So the question reads, regarding the posting expenses, how do you handle GPS units? And we post each GPS to the individual stock number. And that answer came back at 57% said they put it to the individual stock number. Certainly, let's clarify. Certainly you're going to go attach the GPS unit to the stock
in the
number in the
software.
software
Yeah.
because those things have to be synchronized. I'm talking
Yes.
about the cost, posting the expense of the unit to that particular car. And this one came up for me way back when I had my own dealership. And just an example, if you get 20 GPS units delivered, now I go post those expenses to those particular cars, and it just starts to get watered down when you start to think, okay, so I put it on 20 units, 5 of the 20
Mhm.
repossess in the next 18 months. I recycle. We hope we recover those GPS units and put them on a different
Mhm.
car. And so now the question is, did, why do I need to put it on the individual unit at the beginning? Because that unit is either going to get recycled and sold again, and I now
Mhm.
have the feeling that I have less expense in that unit because I'm not posting a new GPS, which in theory is technically true. But it's like, why do I need to know
Mhm.
that particular unit had a GPS expense? So it was really about raising the question for people and give them an
Mhm.
opportunity to go back and analyze their own processes
Mhm.
in terms of what information really is useful. And I can tell you, in my own
Mhm.
situation, I landed pretty quickly on the idea that I'm just going to post it as a collection expense. It's going to get, it's going
Mhm.
to show up on my profit and loss report, and each unit is
Because
going to get
that's
assigned.
what it's used for, is for collections.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And so to me, it was a collection expense, and so I charged it to the finance company who was owning the paper, right? They were the
Mhm.
ones who had an interest in the GPS because they owned the paper within days. And so I
Mhm.
chose to make it a collection expense. But it's like, I think it raises the question. So I need to finish reading the other part. It says,
Yeah.
the other one was we post the entire invoice, multiple units, to GPS expense, not the individual unit. And 43% said that that's what they were doing.
Mhm.
So more like what I was choosing to do. So it just really, it's really about just raising the question for dealers and letting them think it through for themselves and make a judgment. Is that
Mhm.
extra time and administration? Because somebody's
Yes. It's
sitting,
not about a right or wrong. It's about, where do you want to spend your time?
yeah. And
Yeah.
is that time serving you well for somebody to sit? If I'm the administrative
Mhm.
person, I've got the administrative duties, and I got an invoice in here for 10 GPS units, and I'm going to go, put which car did this one go to, because I got 15 cars back there and we got 10 units, which now I have to figure out which ones went where. And I'm like, how does it help me to know that? And so I'm just saying, maybe we're spending a little bit of time and kind of being inefficient in posting those things individually. So,
well, and I can, I just, from the three things that you mentioned today, I can see aggregate gas, aggregate GPS. It's when it gets into shop, how much time is being spent per unit. That would probably be a little bit more murky for people to go. We can go aggregate, not a problem at all. Where they might want to look a little bit deeper in that.
Absolutely. No,
yeah.
I'm not saying don't have that one. I'm just simply saying the question is,
do you put it in the DMS?
Where to track it? Because most, QuickBooks can do what we're talking about here. QuickBooks can tell you which units had which expense. So as far as my ability to go get the information, it's really just a question of what do I gain by moving it into my DMS? It's a question. Again, it's not a statement. It's like, what do I gain by putting in that extra time to put it in my DMS so that I've got, that extra labor assigned to that unit?
Is there anything, there would be nothing in the capital side when you add those extra expenses to the vehicle?
Actually, there could be. That's a good. I'm glad you raised that. With some capital providers, they're going to advance based on the cost in the unit. So you might
want to say, I've got an extra $100 here for the GPS unit, and I've got an extra this for the labor. So there's a reason why if you are in if it's a big part of the capital.
It just begs the question, though. Let's go back to it. It begs the question, and I posed this question to both Steve Burke and to Brent Carmichael for these interviews I did in recent weeks. But it's like, if I'm doing that and I have 2 units that I buy, you've heard this example plenty of times. I have 2 units that I buy, and I discover that one of them, I overlooked something, or maybe it just developed AC quit on the way home from the auction or whatever. So now I have extra parts and labor in the second car, the green one, we'll say. And so now it begs the question. So my lender is now going to advance me more money on the green one because I have more money in it. Is that going to affect my pricing to the consumer?
Yeah. Well, and that was the question that you had for Brent and for Steve and all of that.
We were talking about pricing and markup. So it really is an exaggerated example to say so it kind of attaches to what we're talking about here. It relates in that if I post those expenses and I see that I own this car for more, how is that going to affect my pricing? Like when I choose to go to pricing, if I'm pricing from cost, then the fact that I have more labor hours in this one, is that because the mechanic was working slower? Is it because we were waiting on parts and whatever? It's like, I think where we can get ourselves a little out of whack is when we start to price from cost and we say we have more cost in this one, so it should be priced differently. And I think, should it? Like, it's just, it's again, it's a question.
And that's a much larger question. And I know you put together a tool, and as we develop and we start working more and more with the tech side, that might be a tool that becomes available to dealers for pricing. And it's like, what's the condition? What's the and learning to price through that and making sure that when someone steps on the lot and they go, why is this green Accord that is a 2020 priced at X, but this blue Accord 2020 is priced at Y.
Right.
And just
of course.
Makes a difference.
Yep. Well, we can wrap up there. I think I want to get a quick mention in here for one thing. I want to get this oops, I lost it. I was trying to put the coupon code. There it is. The coupon code for, I forgot to mention on the start of the show that we've got that mastermind event coming up on August 1st on the front end of the CIADA convention at Myrtle Beach. We definitely encourage people to get there if they haven't. And
you're going to be there.
Yeah, get yourself booked and get over there for that. That mastermind is, everybody talks about.
We have heard such great things about, the value of
That's Tracy Myers and Troy Spring.
Absolutely.
Bring that together. And so we wish them lots of luck and lots of dealers in the room for that event. And wish we could be there ourselves, but
Yeah.
On code to get yourself a discount.
BHPH MS
for Morning Show.
Morning Show. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your support, and that know that it takes a little bit of your time away from other things, or maybe you're just catching this on a rerun on your way to the auction. But we do appreciate you listening, and if there's something you'd like to hear us kind of break down or bring a guest in or something like that, please reach out to us and let us know. And yeah, it's Friday. Enjoy your Friday, and we will see you on Monday.
Have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend. Thanks, guys.